Priesthoods of various gods have been bilking the ignorant masses for ages. Christian priests and preachers are no different, pushing a religion that has no real substance, extracting great gobs of cash from naive dupes. Those robed ministers aren't the pleasant, docile, beneficent guys you thought. The Essence of Reality explores how the psyche which you are creates the reality you encounter. Yes, indeed, you found the essence of reality. We explore consciousness here, the nature of your own existence, how reality actually works. You know, common paradigms like religion and science, they simply don't describe experienced reality. Worse, if you believe in them, they actually hide life's real flow. You create the life you experience. No God does. No external force does. You do. If you want to see how that works, listen with an open mind and come back again, because we sure have a lot to cover. This issue, fifth in a sub-series of 6, looks at Christianity with a focus on what's wrong with it. Here attention will be directed at priesthoods, the collective clergy that propagate various fantasies of orthodoxy. In prehistoric times, our nomadic ancestors didn't differentiate their roles much within tribal groups. That is, most members of roaming units did pretty much the same tasks. Some break down based on sex, child rearing, hunting, gathering, meal preparation and such, but it was only when groups grew larger that chieftains and shamans emerged. One dominant character to make group decisions, another to preserve healing and ritual traditions. As mankind adopted agriculture, though, populations grew and activities specialized, with individuals taking on roles of farming, trade, crafts, and so forth, within a more complex society. As all that took place, chiefs evolved into kings, replete with privileged entourages and family-based royalty, and shamans morphed into highly privileged collectives, priesthoods. Already 3 to 2 millennia BC, entrenched priesthoods dominated daily life and empire traditions in Mesopotamia, Egypt, and elsewhere. Living cushy lifestyles, some specialized priesthood or other dominated practically every culture on earth during every time period. Ancient privileged lifestyles of high priests and religious functionaries passed naturally into Jewish customs. Reducing the number of imagined gods from many to one didn't make much difference in the lifestyle of the privileged priesthood. 2 millennia ago, Jesus invariably took issue with exactly that entrenched temple elite, Sadducees and other officials, with a chokehold monopoly on temple activities, sacrifices, and other rituals. They lived a posh lifestyle while gullible, powerless peasants supported them. In one of history's oddest twists, exactly that same priesthood dominates Christendom, which Jesus railed against in his own time. That exclusive, know-it-all mentality of specialists living privileged, cushy lifestyles at the expense of ignorant masses. How can that be? How can it go on, generation after generation? Let's just see. Tom Nair here, Exploring Consciousness. Insights here add to my website, my books, and hundreds of talks I've given to open-minded groups. From a mystic experience I had years ago through my long inner journey, I've come to see the oneness of things. You are connected to life experiences and relationships, not separate and apart as science and religion imply. Aware of that connection, you can improve real life in all ways by finding and changing inner roots to outer problems. I call this clear awareness, bypassing beliefs to clearly see how life works. In modern Western culture, it's precisely that synthetic set of declarations that constitute Christianity that really, really needs to be bypassed. That's not so easy to do, actually, until someone exposes the overriding fallacy to Christian tenets And exactly that is what I'm doing here. Part 5 of 6 in a subseries of The Essence of Reality adds to the debunking of Christian myth presented as truth. It appends how basic archaic myth grew into enforced religion as Christianity spread through ignorant masses during European Middle Ages. And it emphasizes how Christianity, like all belief systems, appears to be true if and only if you believe in it. When young people called to the ministry as they put it, go to a seminary to study to be priests and preachers, here's what they learn. They study the Bible in its historical context and look critically at its many aspects. They learn about internal conflict in New Testament passages, where it says one thing in one place, just the opposite elsewhere. They learn of internal inconsistencies and false authorship, how 19 of the 27 books in the New Testament have phony names attached as authors. They learn how exaggerated accounts, basically myth, are simply accepted as truthful. Young would-be preachers learn how early Christianity had many competing sects, competitive groups brought together only in the 4th century to form a single orthodoxy by the Emperor Constantine of all people. They learn how the church pretends that orthodoxy was predominant from early days, which it wasn't. In short, clergy in training learn of all the flaws and distortions, exaggerations and revisions of history perpetrated by Christian sects over centuries. They learn many, many reasons to doubt ideas put forth by every Christian denomination, but strangely enough, when they graduate into their religion's employed ministerial ranks to become parsons, pastors, and priests, they never mention any of the many reasons to doubt everything Christianity claims. Of course they don't. Should they tell the truth and expose the flimsy house of cards that Christianity represents, they would either offend their congregation and get fired, or the church would disband. As I pointed out in the beginning, all cultures on all continents throughout time have hosted their resident spiritual specialists. All of our ancestors had localized priesthoods as experts in ritual and rite, privileged intercessors with their own set of conceptualized gods. Every single priesthood avidly and vigorously protected their position by opposing any thinking outside their own precepts. Within the realm of Christendom, over centuries, the number of people historically who were tortured and executed simply for differing with church mandates and dictates runs into tens of thousands. In general, preachers are nice people. Many must be sincere in their beliefs, wanting to help others within the context of their faith. But faith is built on beliefs, not understanding. And beliefs are nothing more than mind constructs. They never clarify how life works. They only distort your perception of it. Faith in something that doesn't exist is extremely damaging to the conscious self. It doesn't matter how deeply held convictions are, how strong the faith of parsons, bishops, or popes. Those orthodox declarations, the Trinity, judgment, sin, punishment, a Savior, are mere ideas, devoid of substance. They only serve to perpetrate falsehoods, to keep people addicted to phony ideas, and keep the clergy employed. Jesus of Nazareth was a highly significant visionary. If you come to see how consciousness, your own perceived self, is connected to the world, how you manifest your life in all of its phases, then and only then will you understand Jesus' message embodied in his parables. Jesus' message was about you, about real life, but Christianity isn't. It's about a fantasy world that Paul and his ancient pious peers concocted. Jesus was not the Son of God, the one with a capital G, because that deity never existed any more than any other deity ever did. Jesus was not a Savior because there's nothing that you need to be saved from except for old, worn-out ideas like Christianity. Jesus didn't work miracles because miracles don't happen. When you understand all aspects of consciousness and reality, You'll see life's meaning-based existence, and it doesn't feature events outside the scope of one's inner-outer connection. What Christianity refers to as miracles are simply part of life, not events outside the scope of it. In pushing the fantasy that Jesus was divine, that believing in him gets you to a non-existent post-death wonderland, that sins lead to punishment, in foisting all of those phony ideas on society, all Christian churches perpetrate an age-old hoax. Priests, preachers, clergy of all denominations are all guilty of passing along information which they learned in seminary is baseless and deceptive. As ages of priesthoods before them, Christian clergy live privileged lives off the donations of others while passing along claptrap and fantasy, and they carry out age-old fraud camouflaged with piety, robes, and candles. But none of that matters to you now. Part of your journey is to rid yourself of phony beliefs. Now that you know how totally lacking in substance that Christian claims are, that should be much easier. Only when you release false ideas of external gods and blessed clergy who commune with them will you be able to gain full confidence in your own innate creative power. More to look at here. See you at part 6. As mankind adopted agriculture, though, populations grew and activities specialized. Chiefs evolved into kings, and shamans morphed into highly privileged collectives, priesthoods. Living cushy lifestyles, some specialized priesthood or other dominated practically every culture on earth during every time period. 2 millennia ago, Jesus invariably took issue with exactly that entrenched temple elite, Sadducees and other officials. In one of history's oddest twists, exactly that same priesthood dominates Christendom, which Jesus railed against in his time. When young people go to seminary to study to be priests and preachers, they learn about internal conflict in New Testament passages. They learn of internal inconsistencies and false authorship. They learn how exaggerated accounts, basically myth, are simply accepted as truthful. They learn how the church pretends that orthodoxy was predominant from early days, which it wasn't. But strangely enough, when they become parsons, pastors, and priests, they never mention any of the many reasons to doubt everything Christianity claims. Faith is built on beliefs, not understanding. And beliefs are nothing more than mind constructs. They never clarify how life works. They only distort your perception of it. Jesus' message was about you, about real life. But Christianity isn't. It's about a fantasy world that Paul and his ancient pious peers concocted. Jesus was not the Son of God because that deity never existed. Jesus was not a savior because there's nothing you need to be saved from except old worn-out ideas like Christianity. Jesus didn't work miracles because miracles don't happen. In pushing the fantasy that Jesus was divine, that believing in him gets you to a wonderland, that sins lead to punishment, all Christian churches perpetrate an age-old hoax. Priests, preachers, clergy of all denominations carry out age-old fraud camouflaged with piety, robes, and candles. Only when you release false ideas of external gods and blessed clergy will you be able to gain full confidence in your own innate creative power.